People may not know this, but President Obama and I have a number of things in common. First, we're both left-handed, and we tend to write like this. We also are former community organizers. We are former state senators. And we are the father of daughters who we love and cherish more than anything in the world. When President Obama came to my community, our community, in Charleston, West Virginia, a little over a year ago, I spoke to him about our daughter, Jessica. Jessie was the second born of our 5 daughters, an amazing individual, smart, straight A's, the kind of person that could do just about anything she ever set her mind to, so talented. We thought we had prepared Jessie for just about anything she would ever experience. But we were wrong, because the one thing we hadn't prepared her for was happened to her in her freshman year at the University of North Carolina, when she suffered a sexual assault. Jessie, unfortunately, at that time, tried to dull her pain with something that we never in a million years thought would be part of her life or our family's life: heroin. But at the time of the forum in West Virginia with President Obama, we were so full of hope. Jessie had been doing so well. She had suffered a near-fatal overdose. My wife administered CPR. The paramedics administered naloxone, and Jessie was saved, and it scared her to her core. And she committed herself to sobriety and to life. Our daughter's story, and the interesting thing is, at that forum, I asked President Obama one question, because we had had a problem. Jessie was committed to life. She needed treatment. She needed long-care treatment. She wanted it. The closest place that we could find to send Jessie was 6 hours away in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And so the question I asked to President Obama was, what can we do to ensure that we will have the money and resources for the programs, the treatment centers that are needed to address this incredibly widespread epidemic? He said, we're working on it. And here we are, a little over a year later, and we are seeing money dedicated to this problem that will make it possible for people, especially in the hardest hit areas of our country, like West Virginia, like Appalachia, to have the resources, to build the facilities, to do the kinds of education that's absolutely needed so we can address this problem. Jessie's story really underscores the complexity of the problem because, as I mentioned, she was clean and sober. She was doing great. 7 months, she had been doing wonderful, but Jessie was also an athlete. Jessie was a runner, sometimes 8, sometimes 10, sometimes 12 miles a day. She suffered a running injury, and that injury led to an infection that led to her hospitalization, that led to surgery. Despite telling all the medical professionals and the medical personnel that she was a recovering addict, and despite that fact being reflected in the medical records 8 times, when Jessie was discharged, she was given 50 oxycodone pills. That night, Jessie died, March 2nd of this year. Since that time, we have dedicated ourselves to trying to fight back against the stigma of opioid addiction, of drug addiction, so that we can begin the process of treating this as the disease that it is and not as something that needs to be dealt with just through the criminal justice system. We have worked with my friend and my former colleague in the state Senate, Joe Manchin, to introduce legislation called Jesse's Law that, if passed, which I hope it will pass next year, would simply say that you've got to prominently display a voluntarily disclosed in patient's recovering addiction history on electronic health records. The idea being that people who are involved in all the interdisciplinary approaches need to know so that when they're discharged, they're not treated as Jesse was treated. And the idea is to prevent needless deaths. We have wanted to honor Jesse's life and memory through this work, and we're going to continue that the rest of our lives. We received, as you can imagine, hundreds of letters and notes from all over the world expressing sympathy and condolence. But the one that we received that was the most memorable was the handwritten, heartfelt note that we received from President Obama. It will always have a special place in our family's heart, and it will always have a special place on our mantle. I know that Vice President Biden understands the pain that we have been going through this last year. The loss of a child, no matter what the cause, changes a parent forever. And it has changed us. And this is a bond that we share with Vice President Biden and with families, too many families, throughout this country. The one thing that I said some time ago was, I wish that we would have an opportunity sometime to thank the President for the work he's done and to thank those who are working on this issue. So what I would like to do right now is just to say the deepest sense of gratitude, and with the knowledge that we are going to miss their leadership and their integrity, I would like to introduce to you the President and the Vice President of the United States.
Mr. President, it's a lousy club, but proud of you. We're all proud of you.